346 people didn't die because of weather, not because of pilot error, not because of bad luck. They died because a company made a decision and hid it. A system took control of their plane. Pilots fought it. The software won. This wasn't an accident. It was a shortcut, approved, certified, sold as safe, and it started inside one of the most trusted companies on Earth. For decades, Boeing wasn't just a company. It was the pride of America, a symbol of engineering, dominance, and trust. When Boeing built a plane, the world boarded it without a second thought. But greatness has a way of blinding giants. In the early 2000s, Boeing faced a crisis they never expected. Airbus was crushing them with the A320neo, a quieter, cleaner, cheaper plane that airlines couldn't stop ordering. Boeing was cornered, and desperate giants make dangerous decisions. Instead of designing a new aircraft from scratch, Boeing chose the fastest, riskiest shortcut. They would modify the aging 737 into something it was never meant to be. A new plane built on an old skeleton, a decision that would cost 346 lives. Inside Boeing's top floors, executives made a promise to airlines. No retraining required, no additional costs, just buy the MAX. That promise would become the foundation of the biggest corporate disaster in modern aviation. And no one, not pilots, not regulators, not passengers, knew what Boeing had already hidden inside the plane. To compete with Airbus, Boeing installed larger, heavier engines on the 737 MAX. But there was a problem they didn't want the world to see. The new engines changed the plane's balance. In certain situations, the MAX wanted to pitch upward, a dangerous behavior for any aircraft. Engineers raised concerns. Test pilots raised concerns. But executives didn't want delays, redesigns, or new training. So Boeing created a software system to hide the problem, instead of fixing it. Its name, MCAS. A system so powerful, it could override the pilot's commands, without warning. Inside Boeing, MCAS was treated like a dirty secret. Executives insisted, don't mention it to airlines, don't complicate the manuals. If pilots know too much, they'll demand training. And training meant billions lost, and airlines choosing Airbus instead. So MCAS was added quietly, deep inside the flight controls, with one sensor, no redundancy, and the ability to push the nose down, again and again, until the plane could no longer fight back. The MAX was certified, the world celebrated, and no one realized that a hidden system now had the power to crash a plane. On October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 took off from Jakarta. 12 minutes later, it was gone, slamming into the sea at nearly 700 kilometers per hour. 189 people died. The aircraft was brand new. Early data showed something deeply wrong. The nose kept forcing itself down again and again, as if the plane were fighting its own pilots. Pilots reported chaos in the cockpit, alarms, shaking, contradictory instruments. They pulled the nose up. The system pushed it down. They fought. Software won. Outside Boeing, no one even knew MCAS existed. When the news reached Boeing, executives moved fast, not to ground the MAX, but to protect the program. The company publicly hinted at maintenance issues and quietly shifted blame toward the airline and the crew. Inside, one message captured the fear. If we admit MCAS failed, we lose everything. Instead of stopping the MAX, Boeing sent a short bulletin, telling pilots how to handle a nose-down event, without clearly saying a hidden system could trigger it again and again until the plane hit the ocean. 5 months later, the world hoped Lion Air was a tragic one-off. On March 10, 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 took off from Addis Ababa. 6 minutes later, it hit the ground at a terrifying angle, almost identical to Lion Air 610. 157 more people died. Same plane, same struggle, same unstoppable nose-down force. Investigators didn't need months this time. The data pattern was the same. MCAS again. In the cockpit, pilots pulled with all their strength, while alarms screamed and the jet shook violently. MCAS kept reactivating, each time pushing the nose closer to the Earth. They never had a chance. Around the world, regulators reacted. Country after country grounded the MAX, China first, then Europe, then others. Only one refused at first, the United States. Boeing went on television insisting the MAX was safe, calling for facts, not fear. But behind closed doors, the fear wasn't about safety. It was about money. If the MAX stopped flying, Boeing stood to lose tens of billions. Eventually, under huge pressure, the FAA grounded the MAX too, after almost everyone else. With 2 crashes and the MAX grounded, Boeing still claimed the jet was safe. and only needed minor updates. Then came the leak. Hundreds of internal emails, chats, and memos were released to investigators and the public. What they showed was devastating. A Boeing pilot wrote, "I basically lied to the regulators." Another employee mocked the program. "This airplane is designed by clowns, supervised by monkeys." Leaked messages showed test sessions where pilots struggled to control MKS in simulators years before the first crash. "MKS is running rampant," one of them wrote. "How do we approve this?" These weren't outsiders. These were Boeing's own people. Emails also revealed strategy, not confusion: hide MKS from manuals, avoid extra training at all costs, pressure regulators to accept Boeing's version of safety. One executive wrote bluntly, "If training is required, the MAX is dead." So training wasn't required, and 346 people died instead. As investigators followed the trail, they discovered Boeing hadn't acted alone. The FAA, the agency meant to regulate Boeing, had quietly allowed the company to certify large parts of the MAX itself. The watchdog had handed the leash to the dog it was supposed to control. Internal records showed FAA managers overruling their own engineers, accepting Boeing's claims instead of demanding independent tests. One FAA engineer wrote, "We were pressured to sign off without fully understanding MKS." Another admitted, "Boeing had more authority than we did." Boeing's own safety assessments downplayed MKS and labeled it a minor system, even though it could move the nose without pilot command. MCAS was approved not because it was carefully examined, but because Boeing said it was safe. When Congress reviewed the FAA's role, the verdict was harsh. Regulators lacked training, didn't question Boeing's analysis, and didn't even know MCAS could trigger repeatedly. This wasn't strict oversight. It was surrender. With MKS exposed and the FAA under fire, investigators turned to the question everyone was afraid to ask. Why was Boeing willing to take such risks at all? The answer led straight to the balance sheet. Airbus's A320neo was selling fast. Investors wanted growth. Executives needed the MAX in the sky quickly. To protect orders and keep the stock rising, building a brand new jet would take too long. So Boeing stretched the old 737 design one more time. Engineers warned they were pushing the airframe to its limits. "This isn't innovation," one wrote, "it's gambling." Inside the boardroom, though, speed and cost mattered more than warnings. Boeing made a simple, deadly promise to airlines: no simulator training needed. Pilots could move from older 737s to the MAX with minimal change. That promise was worth billions. To protect it, MTS was hidden deep in the system, treated as something pilots didn't need to know. When the first crash happened, Boeing was trapped. Admitting the truth could destroy the MAX business. So instead of confessing, the company doubled down. As outrage spread, Boeing shifted into damage control mode. Crisis consultants and PR teams crafted careful phrases, while lawyers studied every word for legal risk. The mission was clear: limit responsibility, protect the brand, and keep the MAX alive. Statements were drafted before investigations were finished. Internal notes suggested lines like reassure the public, emphasize pilot error, limit mention of MKS. It wasn't about clarity, it was about control. Behind the scenes, Boeing lobbied politicians to defend the MAX program in public. Some repeated company talking points almost word for word on TV. Confusion became a strategy. Employees were warned to be careful in emails. "Write as if everything you say will be read in court," one memo said. When families demanded answers, Boeing leaders expressed sympathy, but legal teams warned them never to admit fault. Then Boeing announced a software update. Experts asked the obvious question: if the system was safe, why did it need fixing? The company called the update routine. Almost no one believed that. With pressure mounting, Boeing's leaders were called to Washington. Congressional hearings turned the MAX crisis into a global spectacle. Families sat in the front rows, holding photos of loved ones. TV cameras captured every word. A lawmaker opened bluntly: 346 people are dead. Your airplane killed them. Explain why. Boeing's CEO repeated the script: "We are deeply sorry. We are committed to safety. We will learn and improve." Congress wasn't interested in apologies. They displayed internal emails and chats. Engineers warning about MKS, pilots struggling in simulators, managers ignoring red flags. The CEO claimed he hadn't seen many of those messages. "You were the CEO," one member replied. "How much didn't you know?" Silence. Then a father held up a photo of his daughter. "She trusted your airplane," he said. "You trusted profits." There was nothing left to say. By the end of the hearing, the message was clear. Boeing had not just built a flawed jet, it had built a system where profit outran safety until people died. As the hearings continued, another layer peeled back: the reality inside Boeing's own factories. Workers began to speak out about what it felt like to build the MAX. They described impossible schedules, constant pressure, and a quiet rule: don't slow production. Engineers who raised concerns were told they were blocking progress. Quality inspectors felt pushed to clear jets that needed more work. If you questioned something, one worker said, you became the problem. Some reported retaliation, projects taken away, careers stalled, warnings ignored. Whistleblowers also described troubling details on the shop floor: metal shavings left near wiring, loose bolts, unfinished tasks signed off as complete. What was once a symbol of careful engineering had become a race against the clock. One manager wrote a line that summed it up: "We are building planes faster than we can think." The MAX wasn't just hurt by one bad system. It was built inside a culture where speaking up was dangerous and staying silent was expected. Families of the victims became the force Boeing couldn't avoid. While executives defended themselves with lawyers and scripts, families carried photos instead of loved ones and demanded answers no one at Boeing wanted to say aloud. They asked direct questions. Why didn't pilots know about MCAS? Why was a system that moves the nose hidden from manuals? Why were our families put in a plane that couldn't recover? Executives avoided eye contact. Families noticed. Some relatives became investigators themselves, reading technical reports, leaked emails, simulator data. One father said, "I know more about the MAX than the people who built it." When Boeing's CEO apologized, many families walked out. Others stayed and confronted him. "Don't say you're sorry. Say what you did." Their grief became pressure. Their pressure became momentum. They forced the world to see that the crashes weren't accidents. They were preventable, and they refused to let Boeing bury the truth. As trust collapsed, Boeing's leadership faced the fallout. For months, they had blamed pilots, airlines, maintenance, anyone but themselves. But evidence grew. Warnings ignored, engineers overruled, profit prioritized over safety. One report stated plainly, leadership failures contributed to both crashes. The board decided someone had to take the fall. The CEO was removed and left with a massive payout worth tens of millions. A reward for failure? Families called it betrayal. Employees called it predictable. Morale inside Boeing sank even lower. New leadership promised a fresh culture and a return to safety. But experts noted the truth. The same board, the same managers, the same pressures remained. Replacing the CEO did not rebuild the company. And a bigger question emerged. How many decisions were made not by one leader, but by a system designed to move fast, hide problems, and trust that regulators would look the other way? Leadership had fallen, but the crisis was far from over. The Boeing crisis spread worldwide. Airlines were left with grounded fleets, broken schedules, and billions in losses. The MAX was no longer Boeing's problem alone. It was an aviation emergency. Regulators re-examined decades of standards. Experts warned that global safety relied on trust Boeing had broken. If MCAS slipped through, an analyst asked, what else did? Airlines sued Boeing. Some demanded refunds, others canceled orders. A jet meant to dominate the market became a symbol of failure. Passengers worldwide lost confidence. Surveys showed many preferred to wait hours rather than board a MAX, even after fixes. Storage fields filled with parked jets. Airports expanded space just to hold unused aircraft. Workers were left idle. Losses climbed. As the world tried to restore confidence, a darker realization emerged. The MAX crisis wasn't one mistake. It was proof that a system built on pressure, shortcuts, and blind trust could break at any moment. Boeing's fall was a global warning. With its image shattered, Boeing attempted to rebuild trust. They promised transparency, culture change, and a renewed focus on safety. MCAS was redesigned with extra sensors, limited authority, and easier pilot override. Manuals were rewritten. Training and simulators were updated worldwide. On paper, the MAX was safer, but paperwork didn't fix trust. Pilots demanded guarantees. Airlines demanded compensation. Families demanded accountability. Some countries delayed recertification for over a year. Others ran independent reviews, a rare move in aviation. The world no longer trusted Boeing to police itself. When the MAX returned to service, its first flights were treated as tests. Journalists sat on board, engineers monitored live data, pilots flew with visible tension. A plane once marketed as perfectly safe was now watched, like a suspect. Even after recertification, documentaries, lawsuits, and reports kept the scars open. Boeing moved forward, but every step cast a shadow. In the end, the MAX story was never just about software or design. It was about the danger created when a company chooses silence over truth, speed over caution, and shareholders over passengers. The crashes were not random. They were the result of a culture that rewarded obedience and punished honesty. 346 people boarded 2 flights expecting routine trips. They trusted Aviation. Aviation trusted Boeing. And Boeing trusted that no one would discover the shortcuts, but shortcuts surface. And when they do, people pay the price. The aftermath reshaped families, shook an entire industry, and cracked Boeing's legacy. Boeing once symbolized innovation and American engineering. Now it stands as a warning: how quickly trust dies when truth becomes optional. Yet this story is also a lesson. In aviation, safety isn't a feature. It's a decision made every day, on every plane, by every leader. The world will forget the headlines and hearings, but never the names of those who didn't return home. And for their sake, the cost of silence must never be paid again.